Trump has repeatedly floated the idea, in fact, since his first term, originally considered to be humorous musings. But the U.S.'s recent actions in Venezuela have led some now to take his claims far more seriously. Anders Vistisen is a Danish politician and member of the European Parliament, and he joins me now. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for making the time. Obviously, the U.S. president earlier in last week said that the U.S. needs Greenland for strategic purposes. Of course, there is already a military base there, an American military base in Greenland. What do you think is going on here? What do you think the president is actually trying to do?
There's no rationale behind the arguments coming from the president and his administration. Actually, the US have gone from having 15,000 troops stationed in Greenland, more than 30 different bases and installations, down to one with 150 soldiers. So it is an American decision to pull away military from Greenland. The same comes when there's talks about mining rights. They can have all the mining deals with the Greenlandic government they want, but so far it has not been a viable economical option to mine Greenland for any company who have excavated. And thirdly, the other argument that's been used is that it should be vessels from China and Russia around Greenlandic waters. And I think if you're Canadian, you know that you don't have a lot of Russian ships coming up and down the coast between Canada and Greenland. So basically, the arguments that are used are all on a factually wrong basis. So it seems more or less to be an ego trip coming from the president, that he just wants to be the first president in 100 years to enlarge American territory.
This week, leaders from France, Britain, Germany, Italy, and on, including, of course, your country, all members of NATO released that joint statement affirming Greenland's autonomy. Are you concerned about what this could mean for NATO as a member of the EU who represents Denmark? What are your concerns around that part of it?
I think it has to go in two brackets. One is to say, do I think that America will invade Greenland military? No, I don't think that's a realistic scenario. Okay. But it is already damaging NATO, all of this rhetoric coming out. The only one who is winning by these statements from the American administration is China, Russia, other adversaries of NATO. We're talking about one founding member of NATO threatened to invade another founding member of NATO off the coast of a third founding member of NATO, Canada. So basically, of course, this is damaging to the credibility of the defensive alliance that kept us safe during the Cold War. And it's very, very sad to see that alliance that I think is very, very important and that transatlantic bond is going to be put into doubt, and the reliability of our defense structure is damaged by this, no doubt about it.
Denmark pledged to invest $4 billion in Greenland late last year, including boats, drones, aircraft, and that kind of thing. Is that moving ahead? Because the president points to that, or the administration points to that, as a sign that Denmark hasn't done enough to defend Greenland.
First of all, I think the history here is quite important. American administrations have wanted historically the Arctic region to be demilitarized. They have said that we don't want to have a military arms race in the Arctic. Right. And that is something that has been agreed between NATO allies up there. We have had, my brother served in the Arctic Navy. He was there for 10 years. So of course we have other military presence in Greenland, but it has both been a Danish and an American decision to have less military there. As I said before, America have gone from having 15,000 troops during the Cold War in Greenland to now 150 soldiers. So, of course, we can ramp up and we can talk in a NATO framework about what kind of military structures we want to have in the Arctic region. I think that's a conversation we should have with Canada, with Iceland, with Norway, with Sweden and Finland, and with US regarding Alaska. But it is not a good argument to say that you want to conquer Danish territory.
The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, is planning to speak with leaders from Denmark next week. What do you think will actually come of those talks? Will it be, as you say, more of a negotiation about how those activities, those military activities and personnel and resources might get built up in Greenland? Or do you think it's legitimately going to be about the acquisition of Greenland?
I think Denmark has to have a very clear signal. We are not going to negotiate looking down the barrel of a gun. So if the US continue to have these threats of military occupation on the table, I don't think we have much to talk about. If we are going back to talk like allied countries in NATO about how we are going to defend the Arctic region together, all of the Arctic members of NATO, that's a different talk, and we can have that conversation. Our investments are going ahead. From a Danish side, we are going to ramp up defense spending in the Arctic region quite significantly, and we're looking forward to do that with military allies, but we are not going to talk with the US, or we should not talk with the US if they don't take back this threat of military intervention.
Do you, given what happened in Venezuela, and obviously the situations are very different, but there are some people that criticize the way the Trump administration flouted rules-based order, international law. Does that give you pause that when you say Denmark has to say we're not doing this, that perhaps the Trump administration won't care, frankly?
I think it's, for us in Denmark, a dangerous thing to start comparing Venezuela with Greenland, because it is an allied country, it's a NATO territory and so on. But I think we should take a lesson from Canada, and we should have stood more firmly from the Danish government side against the American posture here. I think that could have been beneficial. I also think that Greenlandic politicians from the independence movement should think about a little bit more carefully what signals they're sending to the US. Let's be honest, if you look at some of the overseas territory that America are in control of and how they are treated by the central administration in Washington, I don't really think that is something to be attracted to be honest. We can look at the former Danish West Indies, the so-called US Virgin Islands. They have been American for 100 years. They can still not vote for presidential elections. They don't get aid anywhere near the economical aid, anywhere near the levels Denmark is providing within the kingdom framework we are having with Greenland and the Faroe Islands. So I really think there's not much to be admired in the way the US have treated overseas territories that they're in control of.
Anders Vistisen, a Danish politician and member of the EU Parliament. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, sir.